I'd now like to turn to Joe McKinney, who is the Executive Director of the National Association of Development Organizations. And Joe will introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Ava. Can everyone hear me okay? Good deal. So Ava, I'm upset with you. There's putting me on the agenda behind Mr. Blackman is not fair. I was waiting on an altar call because I was ready to go up. That was some super comments, Mr. Blackman. I really appreciate those. I have the honor today of introducing our next speaker, Mr. Earl Gohl. Earl is a former co-chair of the federal co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission. Again, as Ava mentioned, we'll talk a lot about ARC today because they are kind of the standard of a successful state and federal commission. But I asked Earl to come speak today because he's kind of been through the trenches and came out the other side. And I think he would be a great person to give us some direction on creating a new commission, some obstacles, some of the things that he encountered when he was co-chair. So really pleased to have Earl here. Some of you may know Earl. He is really a career public servant. He has worked in all levels of government, including, I think, as assistant to the mayor in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, worked in the governor's office in Pennsylvania, worked in community affairs in Pennsylvania, has served in several federal agency roles, but I know Earl through his work with the Appalachian Regional Commission, and had the unfortunate job of introducing him when he's sitting across the table for me, so I can't brag a lot. I will this afternoon. There's a session on federal state commissions that I'm moderating, and I will talk a little bit about Earl's successes there because I think he had a tremendous impact while he was co-chair, and I'm pleased to have him here today to give us some advice and talk about his time serving as federal co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission. So with that, I'm going to turn the camera around if I can do that and let Earl give his remarks. Oops. Let's go this way then.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe, for inviting me and for this opportunity. This really is an opportunity to finish the work of Southeast United States. It is an incredible opportunity. You know, I have had the privilege of working at the state, the local, the federal level of governments, as well as with Commonwealth of Puerto Rico over a period of about 45 years. And what I think you will find as you go through this experience, that the regional commissions are incredibly unique. They provide an opportunity to do good work, to work together, to figure out solutions, to collaborate, and to reach as far as possible to move communities that have had challenges throughout history, to move forward and to make progress. You'll find a flexible, you'll find folks that are creative, you'll find folks and opportunities can help you invest, move the ball, and get things done. I would also say that as you move forward in this process, it was important to remember that the federal co-chair has great ability to be helpful, to be supportive, and in the work that she's going to do. There's no question that there are potential for great successes. I would also add in that it's important not to forget and not to neglect, as I did periodically, the role of the governors and the role of the state staff in the process. That as you move forward and as you are running down the road trying to achieve great successes, the best way to find yourself up to your waist in cement is having ignored the governors and their staff and what their ideas are and what they want to present and what their role is in the commission. It is just an important piece not to forget and to make sure that you're able to be inclusive of their thoughts and their work throughout the whole process. It just makes life a little bit easier, and it'll help you move the ball forward faster and more effectively. You know, ARC's been around for 50 years, so our history is pretty much there. That we have the processes, the programs, the approaches have sort of sometimes become a little slow in the way they change, to say the least. But as you go forward and as you think about how to implement the new commission, I would say that it is so important that as you move forward, it is to make sure that you think big, that no one else is going to come behind you and make you bigger, or make your ideas bigger, or make your proposals bigger. You know, in 1990, Governor Carroll Campbell, who I actually never knew, went to the quorum meeting of ARC, and he asked the 12 other governors to provide South Carolina an additional $5 million for his program, because he believed that with the $5 million, he could attract and get to locate in South Carolina BMW. And amazingly, they agreed to it. And today in 2022, Volkswagen is in Tennessee, Mercedes-Benz is in Alabama, Toyota is in Mississippi. There are other facilities in Georgia and North Carolina. There's Volvo in Virginia, as well as all the supply chains that support them. It is an example, is probably the best example within the ARC footprint of someone thinking big, taking risks, and being able to move forward in a way that made dramatic changes in the region. I would also say you'll find that not everyone will love you. It's really a shock, I know. It really shocked me. In about 2015, ARC, actually the governor of South Carolina at the time, put forward a grant that provided about $600,000 to build a new laboratory in Spartanburg, South Carolina, so that as kids coming out of high school would have a leg up to get into the BMW plant down the road. We had a great event planned. We had a lot of people who were sure were coming. Everybody, it was a location. The exit off the interstate was at where the Peach water tower is, where the Peach is on top of the water tower, and we were sure we were going to have a lot of people. The congressman was Mick Mulvaney. He didn't even show up. And then a couple of years later, he, as the director of OMB and the president's chief of staff, he actually recommended that ARC be abolished. It's so important to keep focused on the work that you do, the results that you create, and not to worry so much about folks who may not like you, may not think that your proposals and your ideas for moving our communities are things that need to be done. But it's so important to stay focused on the work and what we can get done. As you look at the development of the commission, the thing that really strikes you right away is it's very few people. It's only one person is that leading the charge, and it's really a challenge to figure out how to move forward and how to be more to make sure that you're able to expand the reach, to make the tent as large as possible, and to be able to reach out and be a part of the activity and the work of the administration. It's a challenge for agencies to reach down into small groups, into small places, and to be inclusive. But the answer to that question is to be aggressive, not just take no for an answer, but to stay focused on the work and stay focused on the opportunities. in the early part of my term at ARC, I participated in 22 business roundtables throughout Appalachia in places that, let's say, were not particularly supportive of the Obama administration. But we went in and we had these discussions and we engaged folks. And while we certainly didn't come out with huge victories from in these events, we came out with the ability to engage folks, have conversations about what their priorities were and what our priorities are. It was quite an incredible experience, one that I don't plan to repeat, but it was a series of lessons that were so important. The ability that I was able to go into communities that I wasn't really, I wouldn't say not welcome, but be able to present points of view that were not necessarily widely agreed with by the folks in the room. The other piece of working to expand your reach and to expand the reach was the development of partnerships. You know, throughout the history of ARC, going back to the beginning, ARC has always been attached to the local development districts. For me, during my term, it's 50 years later, the LDD provided us an opportunity to land wherever we needed to place the land in a community. And it gave us the ability to have a little bit of infrastructure to include people, to understand, and to be able to get a faster, more positive response to the work and the things that we're trying to accomplish. But there was also another piece that we were able to reach out and develop. The Appalachian Funders Network started with a conversation in Abington, Virginia, about the priorities and the challenges of ARC. And over a period of 8 years, we were able to grow from about 10 funders, 10 nonprofits, 10 foundations, 10 folks, 10 organizations who were making a series of investments in Appalachia. And the questions and the challenge and discussion was about priorities and where they were going with their investment and what were their objectives, what were they trying to accomplish, and how can we be helpful and supportive of that work. At the end of the day, we had about 70 organizations who came together every year, sometimes twice a year, to participate in the discussion about what their priorities were and what they wanted to accomplish. One of the things that happened during this period of time was the discussion and sort of the development of the Power Initiative. But when you're a federal agency, you really can't lobby for money. You can't really lobby for appropriation. And we certainly found that while all the states were at the table, the Power Initiative really wasn't something of high priority for many of the states. It just wasn't. It wasn't. Governors had other things that they were trying to do and other activities and other appropriations that they needed. And so it really kind of left us on our own to figure out what was next. But what was next was the work and support of the foundations of Appalachian. These were the folks who not only invested the funds, but also participated in discussion and legislative support. So at the end of the day, it was really the foundations and the work that they did that brought the Power program home and put us in a position to have our appropriation increased by almost 100% that year. And it changed the direction and really changed the type of work that ARC was able to do, and they really expanded the work and the investment in coal communities. I would also say that the other activity, or the other approach we had taken, was to develop a variety of work groups. At one point, I came to believe that one of the biggest challenges that ARC had, that we had in the Appalachian region, was that many of the small banks had left. They weren't there anymore. They, over a period of 10 years, they packed up and disappeared. They were brought out, and the neighborhood banker just didn't exist. We need to figure out how to expand that, how to re-engage the region in capital and credit. We developed a work group that spent about a year or so that was engaged in the variety of issues. I had an individual, friend of mine, who had been president of the Home Loan Bank, both in Atlanta and also in Pittsburgh, to be able to come in and have a discussion with our CDFI community about opportunities and challenges. And over a period of time, we came to the point where we established the Appalachian Community Capital, whose mission in life is to work to raise capital and provide opportunities. Today, it still is operating under the direction of Donna Gambrell, who just brings an incredible amount of energy and foresight to the discussion and gives ARC and its partners the ability to intervene and to play and to help support the growth and development of community investment funds all across the region. And as we have worked through this process, what we have found is the more we're able to reach out and bring folks together into a discussion about their issues, about what's important to them, about their priorities, they were able to really develop an agenda that helps move communities forward and helps move activities forward. You know, one of the challenges that you have in this work is nobody likes to say no. People really get mad about that, you know. I mean, it's really amazing. They have these ideas and they think they're wonderful and these are really effective from their point of view. But sometimes the answer has to be no. At one point, a predecessor of mine was faced with a situation where the governor really wanted a project. And there was a lot of discussion back and forth, and finally the federal fair chair agreed to it. The problem was that CBS News thought it was really interesting that this poverty agency was helping a billionaire, and they seemed to have an issue with this idea that that the poverty agency spent this money in this way. It was a real challenge for the federal fair. It took them a while to work its way out of it, but it was really an example for me to always remember where the money goes and what the impact is. And while it may look like a great idea, it's important to understand where the funds go and what's the eventual impact. I had a situation where a community thought they had a great idea, and they came to a proposal, and I asked, I said, so does the governor know that he's doing this? This is a priority for the governor. This is really what he's asking for. And at that point, folks started looking at their shoes and the ceiling and every which way but to me. And it's clear that they had no idea. They had not really they hadn't worked it through. But the local community felt very strongly about it. We sent the folks back just to figure out, to make sure that in fact there was support for this, that this was an idea that was supported, that the appropriations was not going to be attacked, that there was support in Congress, even in this very conservative community, with very conservative delegation, were supportive of this proposal. So that at the end of the day, when we move forward with it, we move forward with acknowledge that it wasn't going to be controversial, but that it was something that still today, benefits the community and is really a very interesting part of that community. And there are also times where folks just ask for funds that really aren't appropriate. And while it may be easy, it may look easy to say that. I had a situation where the governor really felt it was important that $2 million of highway funds be used to provide access to a $200 million casino. And they were really surprised when I turned it down. But you know, those aren't why the funds were appropriate. They weren't the purposes. And they weren't going to really change the direction or the history of the casino that was there. The casino was going to be built regardless. So anyway, as you move forward and as you look at these different issues, it's always important to reach back and see where you're going and where you've been. One of the things that you'll find, or one of the challenges that you'll have as you move forward, is that the application process, at least the ARC, really starts with the states. And the governors oftentimes see this as their priorities and as their funds. And so it becomes a challenging conversation sometimes as you try to negotiate and you work through the process to make sure that you're reaching the objectives and the mission of the agency. At the same time, you are also being somewhat responsive to the priorities of the state government, who also is your partner in this process. It's a challenge for sure. And it's a challenge that ARC has had for years, and it's a challenge that other regional authorities or other regional commissions also have. You know, at the end of the day, which I think you'll find, is that you're going to have incredible experience and opportunities here. That it is the commission is a playing field that provides the ability to talk about things, to work through things, to develop new initiatives, to think big, to bring people together, to expand the tent, to be inclusive, to build out and make sure that you have the ability to reach a variety of different communities that deal with education, deal with environmental issues, that deal with entrepreneurship, tourism, and just a whole slew of activities. And at the end of the day, it's really going to be up to your creativity, your energy, your foresight, and your ability to move forward and to bring folks together. You're going to have a great time with this. It's going to be a great success. You bring so much to the table for regional commission, so much to the table that you're going to influence how other folks do work and how other folks do business. And for me, for one, I'm looking forward to it. So congratulations on the work you've done and what you've accomplished so far. Thank you. It's been great to see you. Thanks, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Joe, was there anything that you'd like to share before we move on to our next phase in the agenda?
Sure, but I'm not Earl Gohl. Oh, it says it. Just to thank Earl. I couldn't have asked for better points on the structure, the enthusiasm that has to go along. And the one thing that strikes me, and we have a session this afternoon, is that I think if folks look at the Southeast Crescent as the answer, then I don't think that's going to ever be the case. The thing that, to me, a federal state commission brings is opportunity. It's not necessarily the resources. I was a manager in an ARC region, small town. I can remember, it's long ago, I can remember how once ARC was on board, the Appalachian Regional Commission, other federal agencies saw that as a stamp of this is a good project. And although ARC was a small portion of that whole project, they were the ones that initiated other investment. And I think that's one thing that as we continue to educate folks in the Southeast Crescent, and they're like, oh, it's only a couple of $1 million. That's not the success of what a federal state commission. It is pulling in other organizations, other opportunities and putting that stamp of approval that this is a project that's important to our region. So Earl, again, thanks. That was fantastic. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I'd like to second that. So much wisdom in Mr. Gohl's presentation. And I think there's going to be so much for us to absorb and take in. And I hope that he will. I know that when we were trying to get him to do this, he said that, you know, he's not working for anyone right now, but I hope that he would be willing to continue with us as we go forward in this effort, that we can glean some of the richness of the wisdom that he has gained and has to contribute to this effort as we move forward.
You have 3 people who are going to have this afternoon. Tamara, Brittany, and Olivia are like really the right people to have here. They are very bright. They're all 3 of them are creative and have a lot of energy and do not get all tied up in what we used to do, and so we have to do it the same way in the future. You've got 3 really great state program directors here.
Absolutely, and I could not agree more. I know Tamara very well. I've come to know Olivia and Brittany over time, and I could not agree more that they are great champions for our region and in this work. We have about 4 minutes, and so I'm going to ask that Dealey queue up one of the videos. I just want to highlight, Mr. Gohl talked about some of the initiatives that were that kind of came to be during his time in office. And I would love to we don't have time to share all of them. We will share more of them over the lunch break, as I shared earlier. But if we can queue up one of those initiatives that he talked about in his presentation in our last few minutes, just to give you an example of some of the powerful work that was done during his time.
Well, my sound cut out right at the perfect time. Do you want me to queue up the power initiative, Ava?
Okay, yes, let's try that one.
Okay.
We'll do the best we can. We know the technology is not perfect.
Give me one moment.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And as we go, as you can see, with the right leadership, the right support, the right investment, you can make a powerful impact in building economic resilience in a region.